Good evening, welcome to the Coaches of the Common. We're up to episode 10 tonight, and I'm very excited to have Dave Rouse here with me, who I'll explain to you in a moment. For those of you who've not joined us before, the whole idea of these Facebook Live sessions is to introduce you to the coaches we have here at the Common and talk to you about how we can actually help you in your business. So Dave is here. He's one of our coaches at the Common and also works with Ventel. Hi, Dave. Dave, I'm just going to introduce, he's actually owned, run, bought and sold an array of different businesses, often really distressed businesses that actually need a turnaround. And he takes them and he improves them and he actually adds value to them and then makes them saleable. So Dave's going to talk to us a little about that. Now, his topic this evening is actually one that's of interest to me. So if you remember last week, we were actually talking about pricing, value, expensive gifts, all things that are very dear to my heart. And this week we have another topic that is one of my favourite topics, and it's handcuffs. But this time we're talking about how to remove those handcuffs. So we all go into business thinking that we'll have a lot more flexibility, a lot more of our own time, a lot more sort of joy in our lives, and then suddenly the business becomes handcuffed by all the stuff that's going on. So Dave's going to tell us how we actually remove that. Dave, welcome.
Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all, Dave.
So I started off in business by accident when I was in my early 20s and learnt the hard way what not to do, and basically found I used to do some quality assurance and that kind of work, and that sort of had a very process focus. So from there I started implementing some of those processes into the businesses, and what I found was that, hang on a second, these are now starting to get some traction, they're starting to grow properly, they're starting to, as I learnt more about how to turn a business profitable as well as have the right processes, they started to do quite well. And the good thing was, in most cases, I was able to step away from them and they were able to keep running well. After learning a few hard lessons along the way as well, of course, like most people. But that's where I've, I guess, developed a bit of a skill for being able to look at a business from the outside, come into it and help to facilitate change, either at a coaching level or investing and buying in and putting those changes in place myself.
And getting involved.
Yeah, and the businesses can be, picked up quite cheaply if they're run like a bucket of bolts. They're worth nothing to the owners because as soon as they step away, they fold. And so we can either turn them into a valuable business for the owners, or I can go in and do it for myself sometimes as well.
Okay, perfect.
If the owners don't have the strategy or the motivation to be able to go on that journey themselves to turn the company around.
So what do you think is sort of, you've worked with a number of businesses now, what's the biggest challenge that you see for most of these business owners?
So there are probably three big challenges that I see. The first one is poor process. So most businesses have started with an idea and a person that's passionate about that idea, and they've built and expanded around that person. And with poor process, you can have a few leaky holes in the bucket that person can fill in. But as you get bigger, you run out of fingers and you become busier and busier. You put all your toes in the holes and all your fingers in the holes, and you reach a bit of a glass ceiling as to how far you can actually take that great idea and concept, because you've built it around you a bit like a jail. And unfortunately that makes the business not worth very much, because as soon as inevitably you'll get sick at some point or you'll need a holiday at some point, the wheels start to fall off. So that's the first thing, it's the poor process. The second thing is poor discipline. So that's, you might have your own leadership style, which has worked for a small business, and as you grow, that leadership style hasn't worked for the expanding business. You might have staff that you're friends with and you don't discipline, or that kind of thing.
We've all been there, haven't we?
Yeah, so poor discipline, and that's at three levels. That's sort of at the staffing level, and at the business owners level, and at the governance level, I guess, which is where, as businesses get bigger, you need a bit of external guidance as well, depending if you've got multiple shareholders, that sort of thing. So that's, so poor discipline. And then the third thing that I see all the time is poor expectations. Business owners expect their staff are going to change, and therefore their business is going to change, and without looking at themselves and how difficult change management is just for them. And their staff are hardly as motivated to change at the same pace that the leader is. So unless you've got really strong leadership and a really strong catalyst for change, like changing environment that they're working in, it could even be changing premises or having a different leader come in from a different perspective. Most business owners have expectations that their staff will go further than they actually end up doing.
Yep. So that's really interesting, isn't it? So are you saying that sometimes the person who starts the business is the right leader in the beginning but isn't the right leader in the end?
Absolutely. Yeah. They've got the business where it is today.
Yep.
The problem is they haven't got value out of that. So all of their hard work, they're tied to it or handcuffed to it to be able to keep it going. They can't step out, sell the business, step out, take a big holiday.
Yep.
All those things that a business owner should really deserve by the time they've been through all the blood, sweat and tears of getting to where they are.
Yep.
They can't enjoy all of the rewards. You know, they might be doing financially okay, be able to get the nice cars, houses and all that, but can they really escape and relax and work on their own health?
Yeah, we talk about that a lot when we work with people. It's, you know, at the end of the day, you can build a business that's highly successful from the outside because it's earning good money, but the business owner is working ridiculous hours, not spending time with family and friends, not doing what they like, and like you said, they don't get to take a holiday or do any of the fun things that they actually went into business for, was to have more time and more flexibility.
Absolutely, and in the worst case scenario, they're just treading water, they're not actually making really any money. They may as well be working for somebody else.
Yep.
Where they can actually turn their phones off at 5 o'clock and go and relax and focus on the family instead of being worried about paying the wages or the PAYE tomorrow or all of those things that business owners lose sleep over. Have they forgotten something, you know?
Yeah. So if you start working with a business, what's the first thing you do when you go in there?
The first thing I do is look at the P&Ls and the balance sheet, have a look at the financials and see how they're performing. And then I start, you can normally see some real red flags which you can start honing in on.
Yep.
And figuring out, you know, are they pricing wrong? What are they, you know, are they, there's usually some really telltale signs in the balance sheet that point me in the right direction. And then from there I
start digging deeper.
Dig a bit deeper and you uncover where the worst parts of the process are, all the big holes. And often people are surprised that I find this, or that any business coach or auditor will find this kind of thing, because they say, and the most common thing that they say to me is, why didn't I spot that? That's right in the middle of my balance sheet. It's a big black hole that all my money's going into.
But the reality is, it's the wood for the tree stuff, isn't it? When you're so busy and you're so focused on your business and you're in it day in, day out, you just miss things because they become absolutely second nature. That's what happens. You don't pay as much attention. It's
like walking, you know, a staircase without a rail on it, for example. You know, when you first use that staircase, you think, oh shit, I better put a rail on that. That's dangerous. By the time you've gone up and down there 7 times, you've forgotten that the rail was needed, and it becomes lower on priority because you're always, as a business owner, having new things thrown at you. So that big hole in the floor or the rail on the stairs, you forget that it's there, and you go years later when somebody says, hey, why don't you put a rail on the stairs? You know, you're exposed here.
So what do you think prompts somebody to actually put up their hand and ask for help? Because if we're so sort of engrossed in it, then what really is that motivator to kind of go, hey, I need some help here?
Unfortunately, it's, in my experience, it's usually something bad has happened. So, you know, they've got a sick family member that they need to help take care of or something, but they actually can't because the business starts failing as soon as they step out of it. Or it's something like they themselves need a holiday, they start burning out and they start saying, hey, I can't sustain these hours anymore, I don't have the energy. Or they just start losing passion and the business profitability really quickly drops off.
So the reality is there's probably a couple of reasons why you'd want to turn this thing around. You're either looking to kind of regain some of that lifestyle. So I think there's some warning flags out there where you're going, hey, this isn't really working. That's a good opportunity to have a look at it. The second thing is if you want to sell a business, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to sell a business, having it reliant on one person is never going to work, is it?
No. And I do get referrals from business brokers that people have approached them and they've just said, this is just not saleable. You've got nothing except assets to sell, you know, sell the equipment and machinery.
And there's going to be some nervousness, right? Because if I had a business that wasn't doing as well as I thought it would, and let's face it, we all beat ourselves up about not being good enough. If I've got a business that I don't think is doing as well as it should, I'm going to go, oh my God, if I invite Dave in, he's going to open up all of this stuff I'm going to maybe not want to have a look at. How do you overcome that sort of fear in people of...
The worst thing we want to do is just open a can of worms. Like, you know, you can see from the outside in that there's a can of worms there, and you think, okay, let's just prepare ourselves to eat this elephant one bite at a time, and maybe even park the can of worms to the side and refocus on not the past but the future. It's, you know, pretend you've died, you're born again, and you're going to do things completely different as if you're a new owner coming into the business, and let's have a look at how you would do things this time. And then we have a look at the bridge, you know, where you are, where you need to be, and let's see how we can help you to build the cobblestones, I guess, to form that bridge. It does take a bit of hard graft because it requires the actual business owner to either have the faith to change themselves or to step away a little and perhaps appoint a GM to help them through that change management process.
But of course the end goal is they're going to have a business that suddenly isn't handcuffing them to it, and they can actually go out and do the things that they want to do. Absolutely.
The other thing is that it's scalable. They can go and, you know, build the business again, or, you know, set up another branch, or they can execute a command and conquer strategy to dominate their industry. They can't do that if the business is wrapped around them.
So it is really interesting. So I'm a coach myself, as you all know, but I also use coaches myself because I know there are times when we actually need help. And in fact, just last week, I actually called on Dave to give me a hand because I had a business problem that I just couldn't see the answer to. And quite in all honesty, I sat there and I went, I don't know what to do here. I called Dave in, and within an hour and a half of working together, we had literally done that whole bridge thing. Here's where we are, here's where we need to be. What do we need to do to get across that gap? And suddenly an hour and a half later, I walked out of it and kind of went, okay, that's easy. And I have to say, embarrassing, because you kind of go, I knew the answers, I knew how to do this. But the reality is, if you don't work with somebody outside of what's going on, you often just cannot escape from that sort of thing, being completely blinkered by those trees. So it is definitely worthwhile. Now tell me, a lot of people will actually say, oh yeah, but you don't know about my industry, because my industry is different. What would be your answer to that?
Well, you know, there is industry knowledge at a technical level, but most of what I come across is a people and process problem, not an industry-specific problem. So I've stepped from, you know, engineering firms to auditing firms to different, like just about every spectrum that you could imagine. Food exporting business, just they all share the same trials and tribulations to work through. Some of them in worse areas than others, but it's fairly consistent. Now in the tech space as well. I'm working through that, but it's exactly the same.
I find the same thing. Okay, that's great. Have we got any questions from the floor for Dave that we can actually ask?
In terms of, for example, like you said, if one business is not working, you can always open franchises or another branch or something in another city. So,
if it's not working. If it's,
that was in stereo.
What I love to see is scalability. That doesn't mean you have to scale. It just means you can step away from the business, or you can work on it from the outside in, and that's, I guess, the difference in the business or on the business. If you're on the business, you can look at those different strategies, whether it's franchising, whether it's just increasing your market share, or whether it's moving into different countries.
Cool. Okay, so I think the key thing is that it's better to do it before it's too late, right? It's better to do it before something happens, before you have that something in your family.
We're all humans, and we're not in that. None of the businesses that I've come across recently have been in that position where they're planning a business 5 years in advance, and they want to put these systems and processes in place at the start and be scalable. But then I guess if they were in that situation, they probably wouldn't come asking for help either anyway, because they'd be gurus. But
what I'm saying is, you can do it when things get tough, and that's definitely
absolutely.
a good time to do it, but there's also an opportunity to do it before things get tough. So if you're looking for growth in your business and you're going, hey, look, I do want to be out here in 5 years' time, now's a good time to actually start looking at that stuff right now before you get to the edge of the cliff and before it gets a little bit too late.
Absolutely. Yeah? And having somebody to, from 2 points of view, firstly to hold your hand through that process, but also to hold you accountable. You'll come up with most of the answers yourself, but just having somebody to hold you accountable to that is worth its weight in gold as well. I mean, I use a business coach as well myself, obviously. I've shoulder tapped Debra for my next business to do the same, but because we're all humans, right? We're creatures of habit. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we've got our strengths and weaknesses. Okay, fantastic. Well, are there any other questions from the online audience on? No, that's cool. So I guess I just want to summarise what I've heard today. So the reality is we go into a business that we're really passionate. We know that we want to build this business because we're usually quite good at what we do. We end up doing everything ourselves, and as these little holes, as you said, appear, we start plugging them with our fingers and our toes, and then suddenly it all gets a bit too much and the thing starts to seep water. Whereas in reality, and that handcuffs us to it, so we can't get out. We can't go and take a holiday. We can't go and do something different. We can't scale. We can't look to do other things. Whereas if we took the time to actually work out what was required to be sort of fixed, if you like, and put systems and processes in place, then we can actually build a business that becomes more scalable, that we can step away from, that somebody else can sort of take the reins and start to run and potentially grow it into a bigger business.
Yep.
Is that it?
Yep, absolutely, in a nutshell.
Yep, perfect. And the best time to do it, in all honesty, is before it gets too late. So I would thoroughly recommend, if you are looking to take your business to the next level and you want to have a look at it, Dave will actually do a little bit of a free analysis for you, won't you, in terms of having a look at, why not? I'll just offer that up on his behalf. But he'll have a quick look at the things for you and let you know where he sees any potential sort of holes and what could be done. And then you can start talking about how they can actually be sort of fixed up in the future. So Dave can be found on our Ventel website, on our The Common website, and all the contact details are there. Really great to talk to you.
Thanks very much
for coming in.
Cheers.
Brilliant. Now, next week we're going to be doing some more general coaching again, and it's going to be myself talking about whatever you want me to. So I'm actually asking you to come back with ideas around it. I'm going to be putting a poll out on a couple of the Facebook groups to understand what we're going to talk about, but we can cover anything you like. So let us know what you're wanting to talk about. Have a look out for those polls, and in the meantime, have a fabulous week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.